36% of South Carolina Republicans believe President Obama was not born in the United States. Nothing in this now very familiar document can change their minds about that. Another 10% of South Carolina Republicans are not sure which country the president was born in. That means 46% of South Carolina Republicans are very interested in hearing things like this delivered to them by a highly credible cable news network.
Do you accept that what he produced is valid?
No, I don't necessarily accept.
Do you believe he probably was born in America?
No. I say he might have been.
But what does your gut tell you? Because you are a smart guy.
My gut tells me a couple of things. Number one, it took a long time to produce this certificate, and when it came out, as you know, you check out the internet, many people say it is not real, okay, that it's a forgery. That's what they say.
About
I don't know if it was.
Of the internet is a load of nonsense, isn't it?
Okay, fine. But, they go over it and lots of different things and lots of different reasons. And the other thing is, nobody has been able to see, the day of his birth, they had twins born, they had another one born. Nobody has been able to find any records that he was born in that hospital.
But tell me this, do you think politically, for Rick Perry...
I think it's a positive for him.
Is it a sensible thing for him to do?
Well, I think it's good for him in the Republican primary. I don't necessarily know if it's good in the general election.
That was a former fake presidential candidate on CNN tonight, trying to keep hope alive that the president's birth certificate isn't the president's birth certificate. Here's how a real presidential candidate handled it.
I'm really not worried about the president's birth certificate. It's fun to poke at him a little bit and say, hey, how about let's see your grades and your birth certificate.
Well, but are you saying that your comments about that are kind of a joke, or do you seriously have an unresolved question like Donald Trump has about this?
I don't have a clue about where the president and what this birth certificate says.
Joining me now is MSNBC analyst Steve Schmidt. Steve is the former senior advisor to the McCain-Palin 08 presidential campaign and a senior strategist in the Bush-Cheney 04 presidential campaign. He also managed Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger's 2006 re-election campaign. Steve, thanks for joining us tonight.
Great to be here.
Steve, we've talked before about how much damage the so-called birtherism is doing in the Republican Party. I'd like to explore what good it might do for some candidates now that I've seen this poll from South Carolina. The South Carolina poll of Republicans by Winthrop University that shows 36% believe President Obama was born in another country. They believe that. There's another 10% who aren't sure. So there's 46% who are certainly more than open to the idea that that's not the president's birth certificate that both Donald Trump and Rick Perry talk about. Then there's 30% believe that President Obama is a Muslim. Another 18% believe he is something other than what he says he is, a Christian. So there's 48% of South Carolina Republicans who do not believe that the president is what he says he is religiously. You have this other 46% who think, he wasn't born here. Isn't that what that talk is directed to? It's Rick Perry is trying to find the language that makes those people feel he's one of us.
I find it very, very disturbing. I think this is terrible news for Republicans. I think those numbers you just went through were absolutely frightening. I think that the flirtation with this lunatic fringe out there by some of our candidates is just reprehensible. And it's really disturbing when you listen to Rick Perry talk there, because I think there's something he may not understand about our system. And it's this, that it's the loser who legitimizes the winner in an election through the concession. It's the loser that says to all the people that the election was legitimate. And you have this systematic effort to delegitimize the commander-in-chief when we have American troops deployed abroad in combat. And I just think it's awful.
Steve, there is now some evidence that Rick Perry may be listening to you on this. Let's listen to how he handled this on a local interview in Tampa, Florida.
I don't think I was expressing doubts. I was having some fun with Donald Trump. So I mean, that's a great. Oh yeah, and look, it's fun to lighten up a little bit.
So you have no doubt he's an American citizen.
I have no doubt about it.
That's a new sentence for him. I have no doubt about it.
And I don't think the lighten up comment wears very well. I mean, there is a reason that many Republicans in any given state believe this is a legitimate issue, and it's because people who are ostensibly serious people who have a broadcast platform have gone out and been highly irresponsible with this. And I think delegitimizing the president is exactly the wrong thing to do politically, but it's also a terrible thing to do for the country. And it does, I think, grievous damage to our system and our institutions. And it's one of the reasons when you look across the field of survey data that you see that in institution after institution in this country, the collapse of trust. And it's a big problem, and this doesn't do anything to help remedy it.
Steve, you've been in the room with presidential candidates, the highest level, who have to make these decisions, and successful presidential candidates on their way to nominations. If a presidential candidate in this field said to you, you were working for that candidate, you were in the room, and you said, look, isn't it time for us to go to New York and visit with Donald Trump? All the other candidates have done it. What would you tell that candidate?
I would try to tie myself to the bumper of the car to prevent it from leaving the parking lot. I think that, the notion that there's an upside with the middle of the electorate to seen as going to kowtow to Donald Trump, who, has a lot of talent, is a big personality, but for some strange reason has started to flirt with this crazy fringe. So you can't go see him without hurting your campaign.
MSNBC political analyst Steve Schmidt, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
You bet, Lawrence. Thank you.